I call to order the City of Buellton's Planning Commission meeting for Thursday, May 21st.
I call to order the City of Buellton's Planning Commission.
Someone has their...
It's a feedback.
Yeah, someone has their video on, so we're hearing it on the delay video.
Oh, that's going to be weird.
I have video. YouTube?
Yes, but we're
YouTube going.
hearing it through the speaker, so if you could just mute it or turn it down so we can't hear it.
I turned it off on that piece, Steve. Let me turn it off on this one.
Are we ready? Okay, Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Blockdyke, will you lead us?
Yes, I will. Place your right hand over your heart and repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
United States of America.
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice.
with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Commissioner Blockdyke?
Here.
Commissioner Heedy?
Here.
Commissioner Leggett?
Here.
Vice Chair Sarkia?
Here.
Chair Hamill?
Here. And with that, I'd like to extend a welcome to our newest commissioner, Mr. Aaron Leggett. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Welcome.
Reordering of agenda? None. Presentations? None. Approval of minutes from our last commission meeting, February 6, 2020. Do I have a motion?
Approval of minutes from our last commission meeting, February 6, 2020. Do I have a motion?
We're getting
Blockdyke. Approved.
hold on just a second. We're getting feedback from the videos that you are watching, so if you could put those on mute, please.
Hold on just a second. We're
Mine's on
getting
mute.
videos that you are watching, so if you could put those on mute, please.
There we go. There we go. I clicked. Mine's on mute.
Thank you.
Ready for the motion? Let's see. Oh, yeah. Do I have a motion to approve the last minutes?
Oh, yeah. Do I have a motion to approve the last minute?
So that's really
Bob
delayed.
Blockdyke, yes, I motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting. Thank you.
Second, Chair.
Bob Blockdyke, yes, I motion to approve
Could you
the
please
minutes from
state
the
your
last
name on the second? Thank you.
Marcelo Sarkia. Second.
Okay, Commissioner Blockdyke?
I made the motion, I thought.
We're doing a voice vote.
Okay, I vote to approve the minutes from the last meeting, yes.
Commissioner, or Vice Chair Sarkia?
Aye.
Commissioner Heedy?
Aye.
Commissioner Leggett?
Aye.
And Chair Hamill?
Aye. Okay, consent calendar? None. Continued public hearings? None. And new public hearings. This is where I'll go through the procedures for tonight.
Hearing?
Should I
None.
wait a minute to let it go through?
And new public hearings. This is where I'll go through the procedures for tonight.
Okay, since we're doing a conference call, our new procedures are going to be for each item. We will hear the presentation, and then I will call on each commissioner by name for questions, so everyone has an opportunity to talk.
And then I will call on each commissioner by name for questions, so everyone has an opportunity to talk. Commissioner by name.
Patty?
Yes?
This is Dan.
Yes?
There's a whole lot of feedback coming through.
Yeah, we're getting it too.
Yes? Yes?
There's a whole lot of feedback coming through.
Yeah. We're getting it too.
Should I sit down there? Is it?
Mute it while you speak.
I'm going to kill my video altogether.
Okay, if anyone else has the video on the website, if you could please just either mute it or turn it off.
I turned mine off.
Thank you.
Okay.
Never had
It's
mine.
clear now.
Okay, well, I'll just say hello to see if there's any feedback before I start again. Okay, we good? Okay.
We're good.
Sounds better now.
Okay, I think we're good. Okay, so new procedures tonight because we are on a conference call. We'll start with the presentation for each item. I will call on each commissioner for questions by name. When you ask the questions, again, recite your name with that. We'll go through the public hearing, and then we'll go through comments. Again, I'll call everyone by name so we can have everyone's input. And then especially important, when we do the vote, you need to state your name and your voting choice. So that's for tonight. So we will start with the new public hearings. Resolution number 20-02, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Buellton, California, considering recommendations to the City Council on revisions to Title 19 zoning of the Buellton Municipal Code 20-Z0A-02 relating to electric vehicle charging station permit expediting, amending sections 19.02.030 and 19.12.020, adding section 19.06.280, and making findings in support thereof. Kara?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Planning Commissioners. Before you this evening is an ordinance to streamline and expedite the permitting process for electric vehicle, or EV, charging stations. In 2015, State Assembly Bill 1236 was passed, requiring local governments to adopt such an ordinance as this in order to provide a cost-effective and timely process for permitting charging stations. The California Energy Commission, CEC, has also made funding available to further incentivize charging station installation through the Cal EVIP grant program, which the County of Santa Barbara is currently applying for. In order to be competitive for these funds, the county has asked all its jurisdictions to adopt an ordinance for streamlined permitting by this summer. EV charging stations include any level of infrastructure that deliver electricity to the electric vehicle, which not only includes the charging stations themselves, but the installation of undergrounded wires and electric panels. Cal Green building standards also require that new construction include infrastructure for electric vehicles, so it is expected that there will be a continued rise in demand for EV charging. Assembly Bill 1236 requires that applications to install charging stations must be approved at the administrative level, which in our case is through the Planning Department. The land use exemption process that our department uses is an administrative one, used for projects that do not need a land use permit but may still need a building permit, such as irrigation, small accessory buildings, utilities, and solar panels. This is a no-fee application simply to ensure the installation meets the applicable standards in our municipal code. The standards applied to charging station projects can only be those relating to health and safety. Existing health and safety standards in Title 19, our zoning ordinance, include adherence to setbacks, noise regulations, and easements, so there are no conflicts between a charging station and any easement. Also, any signs installed as part of the project must also apply for a separate sign permit through the standard process in our zoning ordinance. Adherence to standards applied through state law with this bill would be primarily verified through the Building Department, including compliance with ADA standards in the Americans with Disabilities Act. The city contracts with the County of Santa Barbara for all building permits, and the county has already adopted an ordinance for streamlined EV charging station permitting, so the Building Department is well adept at processing these applications and verifying adherence to standards required by state law. Charging stations would be allowed in all zones through the land use exemption process. unless it is found that the proposed installation would have a specific adverse impact on public health and safety. If this would be the case, the applicant may be required to apply for a zoning clearance, and zoning clearances can have conditions applied to them which mitigate for the specific adverse impact. And these mitigation measures or conditions must be applied at the lowest cost possible per state law. So this will require working closely with the applicant, the building department, to come up with low-cost solutions. Further, an application may only be denied if written findings are made that there are no feasible methods to mitigate for the impact. The Assembly Bill also added that the approval of such an application shall not be conditioned on the approval by an association, such as an HOA, and the City must also by law provide a checklist on our website detailing all the requirements for a complete charging station application. The County of Santa Barbara has created such a checklist, which may be tweaked and used for this purpose. The Assembly Bill also requires that electronic submissions and signatures be accepted for these applications. And the Planning Department has currently created a fillable PDF for a general project application form that may be filled out and signed electronically. And this has not only helped to meet state requirements for the charging station ordinance presented here, but also is helping all types of applicants continue to submit various project applications from home in our current COVID-19 situation. And staff will be tracking the efficiency of electronic submittals through this ordinance and will continue to consider ways in which we may accept all applications electronically in the future. All in all, with the adoption of this ordinance, charging stations for electric vehicles will have a much more efficient permitting process. There are currently a handful of charging stations in the city at hotels, homes, and City Hall, and it is expected that we will continue to see more infrastructure for low-emission vehicles in the near future. Thank you, and I am open for any questions there may be at this time.
Okay, thank you, Kara. Commissioner Heedy, any questions?
No questions.
Vice Chair Sarkia.
No questions from Marcelo.
Commissioner Blockdyke.
No questions.
And Commissioner Leggett.
This is Aaron Leggett. No questions.
Thank you. I'll open it up for public comments. This is a public hearing. Claire, do we have anything submitted?
We do not.
Okay, closing public hearings. Any further comments, or would someone like to motion to approve?
This is Bob Blocklight. Can I move forward to make the motion?
Yes.
Okay, I would like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 20-02, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Buellton, California, considering recommendations to the City Buell Council on revisions to Title 19, zoning of the Buellton Municipal Code 20-COA-02, relating to electric vehicle charging station permit expediting, amending sections 19.02.030 and 19.12.020, and adding section 1906.280, and making findings in support thereof.
This is Marcelo Sarkia. I second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Blockdyke.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sarkia.
Aye.
Commissioner Heedy.
Aye.
Commissioner Leggett.
Aye.
Chairman Hamel.
Aye. Okay. Okay, we're doing our procedures. Great. Okay, number 3. Resolution number 20-03, a resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Buellton, California, approving a development plan modification 20-DPM-01 to the previously approved final development plan 14-FDP-02 for the Village Senior Apartments project located at the northeast corner of Highway 246 and McMurray Road, assessor's parcel number 137-790-008, and making findings in support thereof. Again, Kara.
All right. And we're trying to get the PowerPoint up, and I think we just got it, so. Before you now is a development plan modification of the Village Senior Apartments, making revisions to the previously approved final development plan. The Village Senior Apartments is a multifamily residential senior community affordable to lower income residents. It will provide 75 one- and two-bedroom units, a community room with a kitchen, a community garden, large outdoor courtyard, and a public trail, completing the trail that runs through adjacent properties. The financial feasibility of the project is possible due to the revisions made. The project is within the village-specific plan on a 2-acre parcel, nestled in between Vineyard Village Townhomes to the north and Village Park to the south. Single-family housing in the Thumbelina neighborhood lay to the east, and an internal road and a vacant parcel planned as a future hotel site lay to the west. The project is the affordable component of the village-specific plan, meeting the requirement for the village townhomes that 20% of all the units must be affordable. The townhomes has 155 market rate units, requiring 31 affordable units. The Village Senior Apartments exceeds this requirement, providing 75 units, all of which are affordable. Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation, CEDC, continues to be the property owner and applicant. With us here tonight is Jim Bizel, CEDC Senior Project Manager, and Eduardo Espinosa, CEDC Director of Real Estate Development. And joining them is Manuel Salazar, Managing Director of Y&M Architects and Project Architect. First approved in October of 2014, the final development plan has since received a 1-year time extension set to expire in October of this year. This time extension helped the applicant apply for and receive additional funding. However, a funding gap still existed, so the applicant is requested to include an additional 25 units under the state density bonus law to fill this funding gap. Through the density bonus law, affordable residential projects are permitted to have more units than allowed in the zoning ordinance. This project, being 100% affordable, is entitled to an additional 39 units, but is only requesting an additional 25. The project is also entitled to up to 4 incentives or concessions and is requesting 2. In the previous approval, the project was granted a request that the requirement for covered parking be waived, and at this time, an additional incentive of reducing the amount of open space is also being requested. The overall intent of the project and amenities proposed remain consistent with the original approval, and therefore the project is found to be in substantial conformity with the original approval. However, to accommodate the increased density from 50 units with the original approval to 75 with this development plan modification, some significant revisions were needed. This increase in density must be granted pursuant to the density bonus law. Furthermore, although the maximum residential density allowed in the village-specific plan is 25 units per acre, the entire 11.3-acre residential portion of the village-specific plan area, which include the village townhomes and senior apartments, could have allowed for up to 244 units. With the existing 155 townhomes on 9.3 acres and 75 senior apartments on the remaining 2, this equals a total of 230 units, still below the number allowed for the entire specific plan area. Another significant change is that the senior center is no longer proposed. The inclusion of this component was not in the hands of CEDC, but the senior community center, who is no longer seeking a space in the village senior apartments, as they were able to secure a long-term lease for their current building. The project is also seeking to be Green Point rated with proposed solar panels, which means that the project will exceed state energy code requirements and is rated higher in resource conservation, indoor air quality, water conservation, and community features. On the site plan, the most notable revisions are the building reconfiguration from 3 buildings to 2, and the building footprint moved to the south, with parking primarily to the north, which changed the setbacks as well. The increase in units also means additional parking spaces are needed, and the parking requirements have been met, and additional bike racks have also been added. The elevations show a reduced height from the previously approved 37 feet to 35 feet, and there have also been minor revisions to the architectural details. The most notable change to the landscape plan is the reduction in open space from approximately 47.7% to 33% of the project site. This reduction must also be granted pursuant to the density bonus request. The project was originally approved without a lighting plan, and a conceptual lighting and photometric plans have now been provided by the applicant. Lastly, revisions to the grading and utility plans were necessary due to the revised site plan. The next slides break down the revisions seen on the site plan, elevations, landscape, and lighting plans. And we'll start with the site plan. So the originally approved site plan is shown to the top right-hand corner, and the revised plan below. As was previously stated, the building footprint has been reconfigured from 3 buildings to 2. The building footprint has moved to the south half of the property, adjacent to Village Park, and the parking mostly to the north, adjacent to Vineyard Village Townhomes, with some spaces to the east before the 30-foot setback for the public trail and the fire turnaround as well. At the last Planning Commission in 2014 for the final development plan, some commission members recommended placing parking on the north side of the building, but this was not implemented in the approved plans at the time. There were concerns with either location of the building, whether to the south end or the north end. With the currently proposed revisions that show the rear of the building adjacent to the Village Park, concerns include noise levels and the privacy of the residents facing the park. While this may be an attractive feature for some residents who might enjoy having porches overlook the park, there has been an added condition to mitigate for potential increased indoor noise levels. One added benefit of the building where it is currently proposed is that the building shadow will fall on the parking lot instead of on the townhome units to the north, as was the case in the originally approved plans. This reconfiguration of the buildings changed the project setbacks. The proposed front and rear setbacks on the west and east ends meet the requirements set by the village-specific plan, including a 15-foot setback to porches from the west property line and a 30-foot setback from the east property line. And the 3-story building on the east end here is set back approximately 88 feet. The side setbacks on the north and south end are set by the Planning Commission. These setbacks are essentially mirrored from the original approval, with the building frontage setback about 74 feet from the north property line and the rear of the building setback approximately 5 feet from the south property line. The original approval had 68 feet to the building frontage and 9 feet to the rear of the building. As for parking, the proposed revisions meet the requirements for number of parking spaces and design. All spaces shown are standard size with 4 ADA spaces. And as stated previously, the density bonus concession was granted in the original approval that waived the requirement for covered parking. And the project also now shows 2 additional bike racks and the building frontage where the 3-story building is, and that's a total of 75 bicycle parking spaces. Lastly, the community garden in the original approval was on the far west end of the site facing Valley Vineyard Circle. It is now proposed to be in the recess of the 3-story building on the east, where it will join the outdoor courtyard and be overlooked by the porches facing inward. Moving on to elevations, the order of the revised elevations corresponds with the elevations in the previously approved plans shown on the upper right-hand corner again. So the first revised elevation on the upper left-hand corner is looking to the west, showing the side of the 3-story building as viewed from the pedestrian trail and Thumbelina neighborhood on the east. The second elevation on the right is looking to the east, showing the sides of the building as viewed from Valley Vineyard Circle, which is the sole access road to the project. And the rendering shown at the beginning of the PowerPoint shows this elevation. A 2-story building is in front, stepping up to a 3-story building behind. Below that is the third view looking south from Vineyard Village Townhomes and over the project parking lot. This is the project's main frontage. The courtyard and community garden will be positioned in the recess of the 3-story building center shown to the left. The last view is looking north from Village Park. The maximum height of the building is at 35 feet, which is the maximum allowed height for planned residential developments such as this. The original approval was granted a height exception of 37 feet, so that height exemption is no longer needed. There are shown stairway shafts in the form of towers, which are approximately 42 feet. However, our municipal code specifies that stair housing is exempt from the height limit up to 50 feet. We have received comments on the 3-story building being located to the east, closest to the single-family homes in the adjacent neighborhood. The original development plan, as you can see in the upper right-hand corner, again, was approved with a 3-story building in the center and 2 2-story buildings on the side. Some residents feel that the 2 buildings should be switched in the current revisions, with the higher 3-story building on the west adjacent to Valley Vineyard Circle and the hotel site, and the 2-story building to the east to be less obtrusive with the 1- and 2-story homes in Thumbelina. The architecture is substantially the same as the original approval, although there have been minor changes in some architectural details. We have received comments from the city's architectural review consultant, Ravat Albrecht and Associates, who review projects for conformance with our community design guidelines. The comments received consisted primarily of the need for further architectural detailing to be provided on these elevations. These recommendations have been incorporated into the project conditions of approval to be met at the time of construction plan submittal. Next, we have the landscaping plan. The minimum open space requirement for planned residential development is 40% open space. The previous approval had a 47.7% of open space on the project site, and this standard as applied to the revision has been interpreted a little differently by the City Council to mean that that 3 parcels taken together of Vineyard Village Townhomes, the senior apartment site, and Village Park, all taken together, must be at least 40% open space. And this interpretation was determined when the final development plan for Village Townhomes was approved by City Council a month after the senior apartment's original approval. At that time, the 3 parcels taken together had 40.2% open space. So the applicant at this time is requesting a density bonus law incentive for this reduction in open space to approximately 33% of the project site. With this reduction, the 3 parcels taken together provide a total open space of 37.9%, only about 2% less than the requirement. and this reduction must be granted by the density bonus law. Trees and shrubs were chosen from drought-tolerant species, and all tree varieties were on the city's approved tree planting list, excepting the various fruit trees which will be planted in the community garden. There are landscape buffers surrounding the site, which will help mitigate visual impacts to the surrounding properties as well. We have our lighting plan. The original approval did not include a lighting plan, and here is shown the conceptual plan provided with the revisions. Proposed lighting includes 15-foot high parking lot pole lights, 10-foot high pole lights for the courtyard and community garden, and wall-mounted lighting on the exterior of the buildings and patio. Further lighting specifications will be provided on the construction plans prior to building permit issuance per the conditions of approval to ensure compliance with our municipal code, community design guidelines, and dark sky-friendly lighting requirements. Okay. Our second to last slide is for environmental. A final environmental impact review report was done for the village-specific plan and addressed potential impacts for up to 75 senior apartments with that final EIR. Therefore, no additional impacts were found, and no further environmental review for the proposed revisions is needed. Also, because the project qualifies under the density bonus law, the project cannot be conditioned based on the submission, review, or approval of additional reports and studies that are not otherwise required by state law, and this includes additional traffic impact studies and story pole requirements. So with the modified and added conditions of approval, staff recommends the approval of the development plan modification with additional staff suggested modifications to the conditions, which will be presented here shortly. The Planning Commission at this time may modify the building height limit, distance between buildings, setbacks, parking, building coverage, landscaping, or screening requirements as specified in the planned residential standards, where the village-specific plan defers to these standards. If the Planning Commission finds that such modifications are justified. However, modifications that cause the density bonus request to be infeasible may not be placed on the project. The Planning Commission may also impose any appropriate and reasonable conditions of approval on the design of the project as they may deem necessary to protect the persons or property in the neighborhood, to preserve the neighborhood character, natural resources, or scenic quality of the area, to preserve or enhance the public peace, health, safety, and welfare, and to implement the purposes of Title 19, the zoning ordinance. Also, additional conditions that would cause the density bonus request to be infeasible may not be placed upon the project. So the first modification suggested from staff is a correction as requested by the project applicant to revise Resolution 20-03, Section 1, to state that the property owner and applicant be Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation, and revising modified condition number 1, project description, to reflect this correction. The second suggested modification is a revision to condition number 93, affordable housing, revising the sentence that states the applicant meets this requirement by providing 74 low-income units to the applicant shall meet this requirement by providing 74 affordable units, including 49 very low and 26 low-income units. And the third and final staff recommended modification is to add a condition which states that prior to zoning clearance issuance, applicant shall revise plans to show a 3-story building situated on the west portion of the site and a 2-story building on the east portion of the site, all other aspects of the site design shall remain the same and shall be in compliance with all other applicable codes. That concludes my presentation, and I am happy to answer any questions there are, along with project agent Jim Bizel and Eduardo Espinosa of CEDC, Manuel Salazar, project architect, and Christina Burrows of Burke William and Sorensen Law. Thank you.
Let's start.
I would just like to add an additional condition to be considered by the Planning Commission. This is Andrea Kiefer, I apologize, Planning Director. The condition is related to the affordable housing component of the project. The entire business plan had an affordable housing requirement attached to it. And originally, the affordable housing requirement was satisfied through a bond that was provided by the master developer of the entire village-specific plan. At this point, that bond is currently, or has recently expired. The master developer has agreed to extend that bond to $2.2 million and some change. Extend that bond through the end of the year, November, December timeframe. However, in order to ensure that the affordable component is an affordable project is built on this project site, there is a proposed condition for the consideration of the Planning Commission that would ensure that the affordable piece of this project would be met, of this project site would be met. So I'll go ahead and read that word there for you. And so here it is. In the event that building permits are not obtained by November 2020, the applicant shall, at its option, either A, post a cash deposit or surety in the amount of $2,200,500, or B, enter into a record and regulatory agreement in favor of the city, restricting the use of the property to low-income occupancy other than one manager's unit, no later than December 1st, 2020, in satisfaction of condition of approval number 109 of final development plan number 14-FDP-03, as identified in City Council Resolution number 14-21. Any deposit or surety is to be released to the applicant when building permits are issued for the project, or released to the city in 2 years, whichever occurs first. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. We'll start, why don't we start with asking questions of staff? So Commissioner Heedy, do you have questions for Kara? Or Andrea?
Dan Heedy here. Yes, Dan Heedy here. Is it in our ability at this meeting to change where the buildings are? In other words, move it back, move the buildings closer to the Vineyard Village, like they originally had it for the 2014, and to shift the building on this, what is that? The east side to the west side. In other words, make the three-story one on the street. Is that something we could do at this meeting?
That was captured in the staff suggested modification, and I can read that again here. So that was prior to zoning clearance issuance, applicant shall revise site plans to show a three-story building situated on the west portion of the site, so that's closest to Valley Vineyard Circle, and a two-story building on the east portion of the site, closest to Thumbelina. And then all other aspects of the site design shall remain the same and shall be in compliance with applicable codes. So,
and then how about putting the parking lot on the other side like it was originally shown?
We would have to verify with the developer whether or not that would impact the feasibility of the project. I'm not sure of the reason why the building was flipped from the north end to the south end, but they may have some insight on that.
Okay, I was looking at the original plans, and it looks like there's a 30-foot setback or 30 feet from the edge of the apartments there, the existing apartments, to the property line. So they're set back 30 feet there, and I think it looked like they were set back 10 feet from the property line. So that's 40 feet, and I don't see any, I'm sure there'll be some shade issues, but if you look at the site plan for the village, for the existing townhomes, there's less distance between their units. So, to me, I think it makes more sense to have the parking lot next to the park. And that's all, that's comments I have.
Okay.
Vice Chair Sarkia, questions for Kara?
Let me put my sound back on. This is Marcelo Sarkia, and I agree with Dan. The original plans show that 2 stories were closer to the east, and if the parking lots were on that side or the south side, that's even better. So I agree with you, Dan. That's all I have.
Commissioner Blockdyke.
Hi, this is Bob Blockdyke. I agree with, it makes common sense to me to put the 2-story building on the east side and the 3-story on the west side. As far as the parking goes, I was surprised to see a letter against it. I don't understand why it would be a bad thing to have more space between the south side of the Vineyard Village townhomes and the homes, because there's a parking area between. And also I noted that there were trees that were going to be blocking the lights in between. It might not be blocking immediately, but it will be eventually. So I'm not opposed to the parking lot in front and on the north side. And then the only other thing is, I know it was claimed that the trees that were on the plan are all on the approved list, and I have been meeting with other people on the, talking about the approved tree list. There are trees on this list that won't grow here, and they need to come off. So there's some landscape modifications, though I don't see that as a big detriment to approving. As long as we can move a 2-story home to the other side and the 3-story to the west side.
We've been looking at our approved planting tree list for quite some time and are looking at revising that, so sometime later.
The tree list is wrong. It's messed up. We really need to fix it. And the Brisbane box trees that are on the list don't grow here. They'll freeze. And there are other trees on the list that will simply not be attractive. They'll be a mess. So anyway, there you go.
I knew we could count on you for that information, Bob. Thank you. Is that it for your questions?
That's it for me.
Okay.
I think I gave all my comments.
Thank you. Commissioner Leggett, questions for staff?
I have nothing to add that hasn't already been addressed. I agree with all the comments that have been said. The parking lot, I think, could go either way. I agree. If it was in the north, it would give more separation between the village homes on the southern end. But to me, I think it would work either way. So I have no further comments.
Thank you. Let's see. I only had one question for Kara, and she already addressed that. My question was about the overall height of everything being within the 35 feet and compliance, but then those roof structures over the stairwells being 42, if that was within compliance, and she assured us that it was. I have questions for the applicant, so should we bring the applicant in, and if they want to add anything to the presentation, and then we can ask them questions.
Jim, are you available?
I am here.
Okay. Thank
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
If you could just please state your name, Jim.
Okay. Well, first of all, my name is Jim Fazell, Senior Project Manager for Cabrillo Economic Development Corporation. First, I would like to thank Cara and Clara for all their help in processing our application. As you are aware, CEDC is requesting to increase our density to 75 units. This will allow us to offer more services and be financially stronger. I request your approval of the village senior project changes, and I'm here now to answer the questions you have.
Okay.
Or my team is.
Okay, thank you. We'll start again with Commissioner Heedy. Questions for the applicant or the architect?
Yeah, Dan Reedy here. What size of trees will be going in the beginning?
Manuel?
Yes, this is Manuel Salazar. I'm the managing director for Y&M Architects. For the trees that we're going to be putting in the beginning, they will most likely be 24-inch box trees, and we will be placing them throughout the project. That way they can grow through maturity from there on forward.
So the trees that, again, I'm back on the parking lot, and the light pole's 15 feet, if I remember from the plans, correct?
Correct.
And it would, and that the trees are not going to be able to hide very much up to the 15-foot level for 5-10 years. I'm not sure how fast growing these trees are. Would that be correct?
Yes, and one of the things that we will probably be doing is, as we develop the plans further, we'll definitely have to do some additional coordination with the lighting and the trees to make sure that the canopy of the trees and the lighting are properly coordinated, so that one doesn't necessarily cover the other. And that's inclusive of also the tree types. And I do think one of the commissioners made mention of the tree types, and that's something that we'll definitely take into advisement and make sure that we make those necessary corrections.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, Commissioner Sarkia, do you have questions for the applicant or architect or team? Marcelo, are you there?
Oh, no, I have no questions for him.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Blockdyke, questions for the applicant's team?
Yes, the lighting for the parking lot, just clarification's sake, it's going to comply with dark sky lighting, right? It's going to aim down at the parking lot only and not up?
That is confirmed.
Okay, that satisfies my questions about the lighting. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Leggett, further questions?
Yes, this is Aaron Leggett. I have one question and follow up with Commissioner Dan Heed. The trees that are located on the north side of the parking lot, which I imagine are there to screen not only lighting but maybe views of the buildings from the southern neighborhood above. However, those trees that you've selected are deciduous trees, meaning that part of the year there will be no vegetation to actually act as a screen. So I don't know if that was an afterthought or if there's a reason why you have chosen deciduous trees as opposed to an evergreen tree. This is Manuel, again from Y&M Architects. The tree selection that we have on the presentation in front of you are, at this point, they're schematic ideas showing the general intention of creating a screen between us and the neighboring properties. I think evergreen trees is certainly something that we could look into as something that's possibly better than a deciduous tree.
we could certainly adhere to that if that's a recommendation.
Okay. No further questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is Chair Hamill. Questions for the applicant. I just have some miscellaneous questions. There's a lot of discussion in the presentation about solar panels and that they'll be available. Yet on the roof plans that were submitted, it doesn't appear that they've been included. Is that are we just too preliminary on our plans for that?
This is Manuel Salazar again. That is correct. At this point, what we wanted to do is create a space where we could possibly put photovoltaic panels. Once we proceed with the preparation of construction drawings, we will be hiring a solar consultant to advise us as to the quantity of photovoltaic panels. Because this is a low-rise, three-story structure, we will be required to provide photovoltaic panels for the property.
Okay.
In order for us to meet a 10 to 15% increase, or better than Title 24. The likeliest place that we will be putting these are on the roof of the building. And the reason you don't see it in front of you is because at this stage, the quantities haven't been quite figured out yet, but once we get to that phase in the preparation of the drawings, they will definitely be in there.
Okay, thank you. Another question, towards the back of the property, so the meaning adjacent to the Thumbelina Village, I actually walked the property today because I wanted to see how setbacks were going to work and all that kind of thing. There are above ground power lines on the Thumbelina side, and then it looks like we have temporary power on the proposed property site, and that's going to, it looks like a sales office for the townhomes that are there. But I'm wondering, this project, once the temporary is gone, all of the utilities will be underground, won't they?
That is confirmed.
Okay.
All utilities for the proposed development will be underground.
Okay, thank you. Another question, I'm surprised this hasn't come up with any of our other commissioners. Parking, we have 4, let's see, is it total 99 spaces? 4 are ADA spaces. I'm just wondering if that's enough ADA parking spaces for 75 units. I'm assuming that agrees with code?
Yes.
Okay.
That is correct. This is Manuel again. So what we did is this project, because it is an affordable housing project seeking federal funding, it has to comply with the California Building Code, Chapter 11B.
Okay.
In which there's a section under 11B208 where there's a table that identifies the minimum required accessible parking. For the quantity of parking that we have on this project, we are required to provide 4 parking stalls. So our parking currently does comply with the code standards.
Okay, thank you. The other one, you probably just answered this too. Did you consider, there is an elevator proposed for the 3-story building. Did you consider an elevator for the 2-story?
So what we did is we provided, in the center of the building is where you find all the common areas.
Right.
And so we created an elevator that is centrally located for the tenants. That way you have one way up and down throughout the building as opposed to dispersed. And also cost becomes a factor into it. To provide multiple elevators on a project of this size could pose to be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
So what we did is looked at it from an economical standpoint and also from a practical standpoint of creating it in a central location so that it could go to either wing of the building.
Okay, thank you. With that, I'm going to open up the section for...
Madam Chair?
Yes?
This Dan Heedy. I have one more question I thought of
Okay.
for the applicant.
Sure.
I'm wondering what the purpose of the gate is, and is that going to stay in the project?
Sure. I can probably answer that one. So we provided a vehicular security gate and also a gate around the perimeter of the project, primarily for security purposes. We felt that it was something that we would typically provide on a project for security purposes. And if there's no objection, that's something that is desirable for the developer.
Well, it seems strange, but because you'll have access to some of the buildings, because as I look at the plans, isn't the gate set back from the driveway by it looks like there's like 16 to 20 spaces before you get to the gate. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the primary reason, it's actually twofold. The first reason is that when you look at the required parking, we are required to provide guest parking for the property. So we provided the guest space at the front, and we put the gate behind it. That way guests don't necessarily have to enter the vehicular enclosed entry. The second part is for fire department. In order for fire department to, when they access the property, there is a minimum reservoir space that they require for their fire truck to be fully in our property without the tail of the fire truck hitting the public right of way.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions before I move?
Madam Chair, if I may, would it be acceptable to perhaps respond to some of the questions that the commissioners had regarding the parking, whether it be on the north or the south side by the park?
Oh, do we do that now? Yeah. Yes, sure. Although let me weigh in on my comment on that first. I'm going to agree with the second half of the commission. I would like to see the parking stay on the north side because I think that's a bigger buffer zone for those townhomes to the north. So that's my opinion right now. So go ahead and proceed.
Thank you. So when we looked at the originally approved plans where they had the parking entering the south side in which it was adjacent to the park, we saw an immediate issue that may not have been caught during the time that the design was prepared, which is at from the original set of plans, there is an underground utility, it looks like an underground utility vault, located directly where the vehicular entry would be placed to enter a parking lot that is adjacent to the park. So we saw that as an immediate issue, and we tried to look at alternate ways around it, but being that it is a utility space, an underground utility space, we figured that, we looked at the option of flipping the parking so that it's on the north. There were some benefits, from our opinion, from that. The first one is that we no longer have an issue with it having to cross the utility space, the utility structure. The second one, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, is the fact that there is a pretty substantial buffer between the property and the townhomes to the north of it. So we saw that also as a positive thing. That way, they don't have issues with shade or what have you. Obviously, we do plan on creating a landscape buffer between our property and the townhomes and the single-family dwellings to the east of us.
Yes.
And it is our intention to be a good neighbor and do what we can to make this project be a welcoming part of this community. You mentioned earlier about the possibility of going with a two-story structure in the rear as opposed to on the street side. Conceptually, that seems like something that could possibly be accommodated. Obviously, I'd have to look at it to make sure that it complies with code requirements and make sure there's nothing in there from a fire department perspective or any other issues that could be problematic. But I could certainly see if that's something that we can accommodate.
That would be great. Thank you. Okay, any further questions before we go into public hearing? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, opening the public hearing. You are going to get tired of hearing me talk. We have 6 letters submitted for this project. The first one is from Ms. Susan Perry. She is a resident of Vineyard Village. After reviewing the latest notice of public hearing regarding the Village Senior Apartments, I have some concerns about the project. In that the property is immediately adjacent to Vineyard Village, I foresee parking becoming a major issue. We have 155 units in Vineyard Village townhomes. Almost every resident has at least 2 automobiles. The units have 2-car garages, but not all residents put 2 cars in them. A good number of them park on both sides of Valley Vineyard Circle. With the addition of 25 senior apartments, I estimate this will generate at least 25 to 40 additional automobiles to the senior project. I am certain that by necessity, many of the seniors and their visitors will park their cars on Valley Vineyard Circle. This will add to the already unsafe situation with people jaywalking across the street, as well as people opening their car doors into the traffic. I would like to propose 2 solutions. First, keep the housing project to 50 units. Second, install no parking at any time signs on the west side of Valley Vineyard Circle. Thank you for reading my concerns. Second letter is from Mr. Justin Green. I don't believe there's an address. I have 2 points to make regarding the proposed modification to the Vineyard Senior Apartments project. First, the proposal to move the expanded parking lot to the north of the lot requires further consideration. None of the adjacent property owners on the south side of Vineyard Village purchased their properties with the understanding that there would be a lighted 99-car parking lot within feet of their front doors. In addition, moving the parking lot to the north end of the project involves installing 15-foot parking lot poles that will shine in their second and third-story living spaces. This is a major modification of the approved design that significantly impacts the neighboring community. Second, I understand the density bonus law permits the expansion of the project from 50 to 75 units. However, such modification appears completely tone deaf to our public health crisis involving COVID-19 and the virus's impact to senior living facilities. I hope the Planning Commission and the owner of this project will further reflect on the impacts of this project prior to approval. Letter number 3 from Jake
Excuse me, this is Bob Blockback.
Yes?
Hey, I don't know if everybody else is having the same problem, but I am having a real problem hearing you. Maybe if you could move closer to your microphone. I have no problem hearing everybody else.
Oh.
You. I'm sorry.
Gosh. I'm like on top of the microphone. Okay.
I don't know. Maybe it's just, I don't know what it is, but thank you.
Okay, let me read the next one, and then you come back in and tell me if you hear me better. Okay, so this next letter is from Jake Kalkowski. Good morning. let's see, no address. Good morning. My name is Jake Kalkowski, and I live at 422 Freer Drive in Buellton. I am writing to state my opposition to the revised development plan of the senior apartments near Vineyard Village. When this plan was originally approved, it was my understanding that 2-story buildings were to be built along the property that backs up to the Thumbelina housing tract. It is my understanding that there is a plan under review to place a 3-story building there instead. This is a drastic change and will encroach on the privacy of the individuals residing on Freer Drive. I urge you to stick to the original plans and not approve the construction of a 3-story building on the eastern border of that property. Next letter from Mr. Larry Rankin from 433 Freer Drive. In regards to the Planning Commission, Commissioner Blockdyke, was that better?
A little better, yes, thank you.
Okay. It's hard to see it. In regards to the Planning Commission review for the senior apartments, I hope the Planning Commission will consider citizens' concerns before fully adopting the application and process. In 2014, the project was approved to include a total of 50 apartments with 3 sections that had 2-story apartments at each end and 3-story apartments in the center. Once the story poles were up, it became clear that the existing neighborhood would have no privacy with the 2-story apartments on the Thumbelina side, which becomes both a privacy and a safety issue. At that time, I contacted the city and the developer. The developer and their architect met me at my home in Buellton. They agreed to install a privacy security barrier between the 2-story project and the existing neighborhood. That company later declared bankruptcy. Capital Pacific Homes, which had the 155 condo project behind our neighborhood, also recognized that the concerns of neighboring citizens and changed the design from 3 stories to 2 stories for privacy and installed a 19-foot block fence for security between our homes and the apartments. Today we have a new developer with a new design for 75 apartments. The new project is once again for 3-story buildings directly behind neighboring homes. When story poles were used to assist residents to visualize the project in 2014, 2 stories were already intrusive enough. Imagine what a 3-story building will look like. Unfortunately, this time, story poles are not being used to assist residents to visualize the impact. The city of Buellton stated the story poles were unnecessary. I have reviewed the new architectural design. I really like the design and concept. I feel that it is very necessary and an important project to help seniors in our community. Except for the 3-story construction adjacent to the neighboring homes, I was in favor of the 2014 project and would still be in favor of the new project with some simple changes. This would include moving the 3-story construction from the rear of the project area, which is adjacent to the Thumbelina neighborhood, towards the front of the project where the 2 3-story hotels have already been approved across the street. Knowing fewer people can see our yards and inside our homes unless invited would help preserve our privacy and safety. Next letter from Ms. Gail Mercado. And she is at 451 Freer Drive, Buellton. My name is Gail Mercado, and I reside at 451 Freer Drive. I would like to express my concerns over the proposed change in plans to the Village Senior Apartments project located behind my home. Of note, there is a large increase in the number of units from the original 50 to now 75. They are now referred to as multifamily senior units. What does this mean? The square footage of the units is larger than the original 1-bedroom and studio units proposed. The building behind us will now be 3 stories rather than 2. This is a vastly different project than was originally proposed and will have significant impacts on my home, including privacy, sunlight, and resale worth, all things that I value and expect to be protected as a longtime property owner in Buellton. There are 2-story townhomes directly behind our property, and while a significant change in our view, there is minimal impact to my property value. We have a large hedge and trees in our backyard, along with a high brick wall provided by the project along the back, which mitigate privacy issues for us for the most part. I live in a neighborhood and do not expect isolation from others. The lot line is significantly higher on that side of the wall, further increasing the impact of the project being proposed. From our perspective, a 3-story building would essentially block all view, sunlight, and essentially eliminate expectation of any privacy on our property, unless the rear and sides of that building are windowless. My property value would also be impacted negatively. My husband and I invest a great deal of our time into gardening and maintaining our home and enjoy spending time outside in our backyard. The size of the lot and yard is one of the best features of our property. This project threatens to drastically change that balance and the ability to enjoy our home. As a nurse, I am a strong advocate for the seniors of our community. I am well aware of the challenges faced by them in our area to secure affordable, safe housing. I am very much in favor of a project that provides those things to our seniors, but not at an unreasonable cost to myself or my neighbors, through the losses that I have mentioned above. A community must grow and provide housing for its citizens, but I ask that careful consideration and compromise go into the projects that are approved. Next letter from Jackie Green, a Freer Drive resident. Regarding the above subject matter, resolution number 20-03, 3-story units behind the houses on Freer Drive is not acceptable. It is bad enough walking out our front door to see 3-story townhomes. Thank you for your consideration. Final letter. Good morning. I am writing to let you know that this is from Mr. Oscar Sanchez. Good morning. I am writing to let you know that I don't agree with the new 3-story apartments behind Freer Drive. I don't have a problem with apartments being developed, but 3 stories is a bit too much for privacy reasons, and we should try to keep Buellton a small town feel, not an LA city feel. I would appreciate you pass on my comments to the building committee. Okay, that concludes all of the letters that have been submitted, so I will close the session for public comment. I think next let's go through if any of our commissioners want to add any of these questions or comments into the meeting, we can. And let's continue with our comments and then we'll wrap it up. So,
just really quickly, I just wanted to double check with Claire to see if we have received any new comments.
That was it.
Okay, great.
Okay, so Commissioner Heedy, any further questions or comments?
No, I'm fine here.
Okay. Vice Chair Sarkia, questions or comments?
No, I'm good too.
Okay. Commissioner Blockdyke.
No, I'm good. I had a chance to read all the letters as well. Thank you.
And Commissioner Leggett.
No, thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, so I am going to add a couple of comments. Vice Chair or Chair Hamill. Obviously, thank you to staff. Thank you to the applicant. Like I said earlier a little bit, I actually walked the property today after reading through all of the public's concerns about the privacy issues and the setback issues and the height issues, all those kinds of things. I would encourage actually the public to go out and look at that also. With the 88-foot, is it 88 feet? The 88-foot setback from Thumbelina to the beginning of that first building on this project, that's a good bit of space. So you have Thumbelina, you have, I believe it's an 8-foot cinder block wall. There's a little green space. The proposal has many trees proposed for that. I mean, obviously they won't be huge at first, but it'll be a nice green space. There's a walking path. Then there's, I think, 26 feet for parking, and then another, I don't have the plans, 30 feet or something for the driveway. So again, it's 88 feet from that Thumbelina property line to the start of that first building. That being said, I would be happy to recommend that we move into that condition where we are switching the 2-story building with the 3-story building. So then at that 88-foot setback, the beginning starts of the 2-story, and then the 3-story will be frontage along Vineyard Circle. Anyway, for the size and the bulk of the project, the design and the density housing, I think the design of the buildings have been very well thought out. I think, again, the setbacks, you know, I walked all 4 sides. I think the setbacks have been very carefully considered. The things I like about it, I like that each unit has a small outdoor space, little patio or a little deck. I like the community areas, the community indoor room. I like the outside spaces, the community garden. I believe there's someone on our city council who is going to be very excited about a community garden going in there. Overall, I'm very happy to see lower income senior housing in our community. I think overall this is a good addition to our community. That being said, do I have a motion or further comments?
I'd like to make a motion
Okay.
with conditions.
Okay. State who you are.
Sorry about that. I lost my page. Okay. So I'd like to make a motion.
Is this Commissioner Blockdyke?
Yes, this is Bob Blockdyke.
Okay, thanks.
Am I recognized? Okay. So, Planning Commission Resolution number 20-03. A resolution of the Planning Commission of the City of Buellton, California, approving final development plan modification 20-DPM-01 to the previously approved final development plan 14-FDP-02 for the Village Senior Apartments and project located at the northeast corner of Highway 246 and McMurray Road. Assessor's parcel number 137-790-008, and making findings in support thereof. Do I need to read the rest of that? But I have some conditions.
State what your conditions are.
I would like to add the conditions that only a 2-story building would be allowed to be developed on the east side, and that a 3-story building would be allowed to be developed on the west side. Also, I would like to add the condition that that evergreen trees be used on the north end of the parking lot, and that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, and also, are you proposing to add the added conditions and modifications as proposed by Kara Meck, and also the affordable housing condition presented by myself, Andrea Kiefer?
Yes, I am. Right. As follows. Do you want me to read each one? Section 1, Section 2, Section 3? Would you like me to read all that?
Asking if you need to read all of the conditions?
Would you like me to read it? No, I'm sorry. Would you like me to say them all?
If you could say them all, that would be great, just to put it in the record.
Okay.
Where's it
So,
going?
in addition to the conditions that I've already mentioned, there's also Section 1, an application has been filed by Eduardo Espinoza, property owner, and Jim Bissell, agent, applicant, requesting a modification of Planning Commission Resolution number 14-08, and associated project plans, approved October 2nd, 2014, for a previously approved final development plan, 14-FDP-02. The project site is located at the northeast corner of Highway 246 and McMurray Road on assessor's parcel number 137-790-008. Section 2. The proposed project consists of the following. Development plan modification. Approval of revisions to the approved project description, site plan, architectural elevations, floor plans, landscaping, and lighting plans. Preliminary grading plan and preliminary utility plan. Sheets of 14-FDP-02 and Planning Commission Resolution number 14-08, dated October 2nd, 2014, to allow for an additional 25 density bonus units and supporting reconfigurations to the building or footprint, setbacks, parking, pedestrian circulation, landscaping, lighting, and amenities. The revisions include 66 one-bedroom units, 8 two-bedroom units, and 1 two-bedroom unit. Managers and 9 apartments.
Can you stop for a second, Bob?
Bob, hold on.
Sure.
Do we want him to continue? I don't think that's what Andrea was asking him to read.
This is a mouthful.
Yeah.
Bob,
What are you reading?
All you would probably need to do is just,
Say section 2.
no, all he has to do is say with the additional staff recommended modifications.
Right. Yeah, that should be.
Thank you.
I didn't realize you were going to.
Okay. Thank you. I don't want to read all this. With the additional staff recommended modifications. Okay. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Well said.
Thank you.
Do we have a second for that motion and conditions?
I'd like to second the motion. This is Marcello.
Thank you. Do we want to take the vote?
Okay, we're going to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Blockdyke,
Aye.
Vice Chair Sarkia,
Aye.
Commissioner Heedy,
Aye.
Commissioner Leggett,
Aye.
Chair Hamill.
Aye. Thank you again for staff and for applicant.
This is Jim Bazell. I don't know if at the point that I can step in and say something, but on the Evergreen Trees, it's really a high maintenance cost on the project.
I'm sorry. This is Bob Blockdyke, commissioner and owner of Windmill Nursery. I'm not talking about pine trees. I'm talking about trees that don't drop their leaves, such as oak trees. And why is it such a additional expensive cost?
Oak trees are okay.
Okay, that would be wonderful. Put some Coast Valley oaks, which is what grows here native. That would be beautiful.
Okay.
I would just like to just quickly add, this is Andrea Kiefer, that this, for the record, there is an existing time extension on this project through October 2nd, 2020. To note that the applicant will likely be needing to come back for an additional, one more additional time extension, which will be brought to the Commission for consideration at a separate meeting.
Okay.
I have one further question. This is kind of late. For Andrea, I believe. With us conditioning the 2- and 3-story buildings to be flipped, does that have to come back to Planning Commission, or that just goes through Planning Department?
No, that would just go through planning. So that is the purpose of writing the condition as it is written.
Okay.
Is to allow them to make that change and then just have it be a staff level review at that point. Okay,
perfect.
Yep.
Okay, anything else on Resolution 20-03? Okay, thank you again to all the parties. Other business, looks like none. Written communications, I don't believe there are any. Committee reports, none. Planning commissioner comments. Do any of my fellow planning commissioners have any comments?
Yeah, this is Dan Heedy here. Part of my communication with you guys today was about why this wasn't going to be a new development and, the substantial differences. And I tried to look up definitions of what's substantially different or substantially the same in our Buellton dictionary for the city, and it's not there. And I would encourage that the staff look into defining that. I got some definitions from other places. One was the County of Santa Barbara, which define what substantial differences are. And I think it would help. And I know that the density bonus played a big thing in this, of not having to come back for a new development plan. But I would, just so there's no confusion as to what makes a substantially different plan, because this one is really substantially different, but I understand a density bonus. So I would just encourage maybe that get defined sometime.
Yeah, we can certainly look into that and look at. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kara. I think that was you.
No.
Great.
No, go ahead, Andrea.
I was just going to say we can certainly look into that, as part of looking into other areas of our code that may need updating as well.
I appreciate that.
Okay, Vice Chair Sarkia, any comments additional?
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Blockdyke.
I have no further comments. Thank you.
Okay. And Commissioner Leggett, how was your first meeting?
It was fantastic. Thank you. Really enjoy it. I have no more comments.
Great. Okay, and since we have our planning director on the line, do you have a report for us?
I do have a couple items. So I just wanted to, obviously I am back from my maternity leave and working from home for now, and nice to hear from all. I'm of course happy to be back, at least virtually for now. I'd also like to welcome to our new Commissioner, Aaron Leggett. We're really happy to have you, so welcome, and looking forward to meeting you in person sometime soon, hopefully.
Thank you.
Yeah, and on to a couple of projects that we've been working on. As you may be aware of now, the Vineyard Village Townhomes have completed construction. After 4 years of being under construction, all phases have been completed, and they've received their CFO, Certificate of Occupancy, for the project. There are some minor items that the developer has agreed to complete in good faith, but those are minor items that I is working directly with the applicant on. Additionally, staff has begun the land use and circulation element update process. We have entered into contracts with consultants as well as working with city staff on beginning that update process, which is anticipated to take 15 to 18 months approximately. We just had our first kickoff meeting for that, so more to come on that. Other than that, I don't know if Kara or any other staff members have anything else, given that I'm a week into coming back from maternity leave. If there's anything you guys would like to add, feel free.
Nothing else from me.
This is Bob Blockdyke. Can I mention something? I noticed, of course, you just mentioned that you gave the certificate of occupancy to the Vineyard Villages, but they have not opened up their back gate to Glenora, really. In fact, there's a double gate. There's a double gate in addition to that.
That is.
And it's been closed. Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
I can.
Go ahead.
Okay. In addition to that, it's been closed for 4 years. Prior to that, residents in that area could go through, and I thought that it was supposed to be open to the public, and it seems like they're holding out on that.
That is one of the.
I don't know, Kara, if you've had any conversations regarding that with the developer.
Yeah, that is one of the good faith items that they're completing, and that is to come down soon, very soon.
I'm sure the fire department would like to have it opened up too.
Yeah.
So it's not just me and the residents. It was supposed to be emergency access. So anyway, since the path is completed now, it seems like they're just holding back for some other reason.
Yeah, there were.
Well, Chairman, it is one of the good faith items, and we will reach back out to the developer to check on status on that.
The reason the gates were left up was they were doing filling a gap in the sidewalks, and that was drying. So when that's dried and it's no longer a safety issue, those gates will come down.
Okay. And I'm happy you're back too.
Dude, I'm happy to be back.
Yeah.
Okay, with nothing further, we will adjourn at 7:32.